Please help me. We can't stay here. Dad.
Hello everyone. So, let's set the record straight. This Netflix original film is a reactionary response to the success of John Krasinski's A Quiet Place. That's pretty clear. That being said, The Silence is not necessarily a knockoff film plagiarising the film that came before it, as this is based on a book of the same name that predates A Quiet Place by far. So whilst it is abundantly obvious that this film was greenlit because of A Quiet Place, it isn't really copycat. If it was, there would be some legal actions taken against it, for sure. Unfortunately, this film does fall short of the standards that A Quiet Place set. A Quiet Place does have issues of its own, but so much of The Silence is just lost potential through unwillingness to try anything different with this new kind of genre that seems to be arising. Even if you don't compare it with A Quiet Place, it still seems like a tired rehash of other apocalyptic films you've already seen, centered around a family trying to survive whatever the writers throw at them. In most cases, films in this genre can be really forgettable, anodyne experiences that breeze past you like a fart in the wind, and only briefly come back into your mind when a friend reminds you of it. But despite that, I personally found this film so utterly average that it was actually fascinating to me, due to how much potential a plot like this has. But the film insists on being another cookie-cutter, atypical Netflix film that is thrown on this platform because no one has any confidence that this film will get an audience out of their homes and into the cinema. They literally only made one trailer for it, so I have to use it and display on the screen over and over and over and over and over again until I get into the actual nitty-gritty of the film. It just says it all, really. So the film opens with these spelunkers discovering this uncharted cave. This untouched tomb of nature is disrupted by blunt force hacks using an axe picker that tears away a wall of stone. They inadvertently release underground winged creatures into the world whilst recording it in camera. These are later named Vesps, I think. Vesps? Both of them are instantly ripped to shreds by the creatures and the birds fly into the sky. We are later shown that this footage was received by the news, which is fine, but one might find it hard to believe that it was retrieved in the first place, given the conditions and the threat of the creatures surrounding them. We then cut to the main protagonist, Ali, and as if the similarities between this and A Quiet Place weren't severe enough, she is also deaf. Although we are told that she has only been deaf since 3 years prior, along with a short and almost nondescript flashback that you will miss if you blink. Because her condition is recent, she can still reasonably talk clearly. This is plausible, but I get a sense that she shouldn't be able to talk quite this clearly. You can tell they are trying to convey that she has a slight speaking impediment, but it seems to be dropped later in the film and forgotten about as far as I could tell. That being said, when the film puts us through her point of view, the sound is muffled but we can still hear distinct sounds. So what does this mean? Is she only partially deaf? Or is the film simply shying away from having complete silence in a film called The Silence? In A Quiet Place, the aspect of pure silence worked wonders for the film and it set it apart from the others. So I don't understand why they wouldn't embrace that here. In effect, it was quite unclear how severe her hearing impairment actually is. Now we see these bullies mock her for her disability. And you know how this plays out, you've seen this all before, I assure you. More often than not, bullies are thrown into a film in an attempt to make you sympathise with the main character. It's done with varying degrees of success and resonance, but all in all, it's all the same shit. This film just amounts to the exact same thing, which is a shame because it could be so much more. Had this not been another story following the survival of a family, the film could have utilised these bullies and made them actual characters with arcs and personalities and depth. Just bear with me a moment. Let's throw away the family, all of them. You know, the grandmother who just coughs from time to time, the dog that barks, whatever, etc. We don't need it. It's all cannon fodder, which only serves the purpose of putting our characters in a situation for X scene. These factors really don't resonate with the story. Picture this. What if in the heat of this epidemic, it was during school day hours and Ali is forced to take refuge in a building with one of the bullies that just imitated her spitefully moments ago? Then because of the emergence of these creatures with acute hearing, the bully is forced to take on the very lifestyle he was just ridiculing. He grows as a character and matures. Survival takes precedent, and Ali teaches him sign language for communication purposes. Ali grows as a character by opening up to someone since her accident. Yes, this means removing her iPad boyfriend. We don't need him. Do you see what I'm getting at here? This idea I've fabricated in my head isn't very developed by any means, but I would argue it is much better than what we got. I'm not claiming to be a genius or anything. I'm just saying that this is what being creative and sparking ideas looks like. And what we get here is a tired, formulaic experience. This is probably being so lenient on the book it's based on, to an extent where you might as well just read that instead of watching this. I haven't read the book, but it's probably more coherent than this. Then after seeing horrific footage on the news of mauled corpses on the ground that has for some reason been left uncensored and not pixelated, they decide to leave the city and populated areas because cities are loud and they need to stay quiet.
Stay here and stay silent.
Right. Then the cities are the worst place to be, aren't they?
That's easy to assume, but not necessarily. Okay, first of all, if these creatures detect sounds that you make, would you not be absolutely fine as long as you stay quiet amidst the noise that will transpire during the outbreak in the city or wherever you are? The film A Quiet Place shows an understanding of this logic in the scene where they tell the audience that it's safe to make noise in a waterfall because you're engulfed in sound, which is why it's so stupid that they don't live there in a quiet place. Also, what sounds is this film referring to pertaining to a city? Like car alarms, you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure the bustle that creates for a loud environment in a city would be non-existent once things calm down and all that's left is the remnants after the epidemic, like the calm after the storm. Also, wouldn't residing in a city be much more preferable, as you are surrounded by supplies, all the antibiotics you'll ever need? But no, they're just like, let's go to the middle of nowhere. Also, I love how their first call to action is to put their phones on silent, like they're in a cinema screening or some shit. And somehow this film manages to have a scene that is utterly pointless in a 1 hour and a half movie. This woman's baby starts crying, she's kicked off this train, then of course dies. What purpose did this serve? I don't know, I'm going to hazard a guess that something here plays a bigger part in the books. Who knows? What follows is the usual apocalypse movie shenanigans. You know, traffic jams, petty conflict, looting stores, yada yada, fucking yada. Then the uncle leads them to the woods because it's cheaper to film there. Then he drives into CGI ideas and rolls his 4x4 down the hill. God, this film is so full of stakes. Not because the creatures are a threat, but because the characters are thundering idiots. Given this circumstance, you'd think you'd be extra vigilant on the road. Did no one learn from The Last of Us? Or World War Z? Or Bird Box? Or any of the others? Beats by Dre is not acting like his brother is nearing death trapped in a car, clinging onto his life. He is acting like he pities him. He just expresses disappointment in his brother. And his agent. The brother, uncle, what's his fuck, doesn't even seem distressed, in pain or in anguish. He just seems bored, like he is just accepting his fate. I don't know if this is due to bad direction or bad acting, but
Can you get out?
Hey man, my leg's stuck in here.
acting.
They were scratching in the same places over and over. We can't stay here.
Okay, before I make this point, why after the family has just made it clear that it's safe to whisper, why does Stanley Tucci then continue to use sign language? Does that make sense? Now this is quite possibly the dumbest part of this experience, but it's not the film's fault. It's Netflix being a passive trash compactor for throwaway mediocrity like this, and Bird Box, as they didn't even ensure that the film was comprehensible for the viewer. I shit you not, I went 10 minutes of watching characters do sign language in the car, wondering why I wasn't being told what they were saying, only to realise I had to put the subtitles on for everything so that it would tell me what the fuck was going on. Then I had to re-watch those 10 minutes so I wouldn't miss a detail, and then have someone in the comments say, actually, this, that. Shit happens, the creatures are attracted to them because their dog is barking. Beats by Dre lets the dog out, therefore sacrificing it to save everyone. The uncle shoots his weapon to lure the creatures away and sacrifices himself to save the family so they can drive off. Then they find a house, an old woman comes out with a gun and tells them to leave her property. She doesn't know what's going on for some reason. Then she dies, who cares, whatever. Moving on. Then a rattlesnake appears out of nowhere in a tunnel they are using to funnel their way in order to access the property because it's fenced off. Then it's killed by one of the Vesps. What happens next actually got a genuine laugh out of me. A laugh with the film, not at it. The father switches on a wood chipper and all of the creatures just flock to their brutal demise. With only 33 minutes left in this 1.5 hour movie, the antagonist, the one that is in the book's synopsis, is displayed on screen, not set up or even developed, not yet. The film just presents his mysterious nature. Later they are back in their house. Ali and her father discuss what is going on around the world, and where people are reportedly taking refuge. Ali somehow knows all this, and it can only be assumed that she uses her iPad and googled what is going on with the Wi-Fi connection and battery life she still has somehow. But Ali says that people are taking refuge in cold places because it has been deciphered that the cold is the creature's weakness.
They said that vesps don't like intense cold. People above the Arctic Circle, they're surviving. There's footage of dead vesps and snowdrifts.
You've seen that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this might seem pedantic, but this is a major problem I have with this film's plot and logic going forward. The Vesps don't really make sense, and the origin of their acute hearing and anatomy is inconsistent with its own logic that it's trying to follow to explain how these creatures came to be. We are told that they have been trapped in a cave system for 1 million years. Naturally, in accordance with evolution, after that amount of time of inhabiting a pitch-black environment, the need of sight would cease to exist, due to it being utterly impossible, and their hearing capabilities would intensify. This is fine, but if you continue to think about it from there, it all falls apart. When a species evolves and adapts to living conditions and environments, they also grow more sensitive and weak to conditions that they have been isolated from in the same time frame. The film shows an understanding of this, as their weakness is the cold, implying they were deep enough into the cave system that it was particularly warm, or even hot. That being said, the cold should be the least of their worries. They have not been exposed to light or rays of sunshine for 1 million years, so how the fuck can they show themselves in daylight without burning to an absolute crisp? The film wants to abide by the logic of evolving, but it only takes into account certain elements of Earth's condition to suit their narrative. They're cherry picking. Let me ask you a question. Would it not make for a much more thrilling, horrific narrative To have these creatures only be able to come out at night, when the sun is down, this would not diminish the threat and stakes, as the creatures would still have the upper hand. They would not be deterred by the darkness. They grew in the darkness. They were moulded by it. Then in the fall of civilization as we know it, there will be no artificial lights to protect humans. There will be nothing but darkness. Humans will cower in the darkness, radiate fear and anguish, and the Vesps will thrive in it and feed off of the human race. This would be what humanity need to avoid, to keep civilization and technology alive to combat this unforeseen force of nature. They would also need to keep conflict between one another on the down low. For example, like on Game of Thrones, with the threat of White Walkers. But no, all we get is, they don't like the cold. Let's go somewhere cold. Problem solved. The end. The industry standard term for this is referred to as a shit ending. Later, this cult, led by the aforementioned mysterious man, ominously stands outside the house statuette. When Beats by Dre comes out and tells him to leave, he writes a message saying, "She is fertile." Before we see that human carcasses have been repurposed as egg containers for the Vesps. I suppose this cult worships the creatures and wants to put them inside her. Why? We don't really know, beyond some biblical jargon that Beats by Dre and Alan walks past a few times. It is unclear why they want to do this. They're just evil. So anyway, Beats by Dre threatens him with a shotgun and, oh no, he faces a conundrum. He can't shoot the gun because it would make a noise and attract the creatures. This is what genius writing looks like. If your standards are below the Earth's core, which means if you're below the Earth's core, then you're higher up, technically. Which would mean, whatever, you get the point. As I was watching this scene, all I could think was, why doesn't he just find a bottle and throw it near their feet, hard enough to smash it? This would in turn attract the Vesps, and the cult would no longer pose a problem, because they would be dead. He should literally just use that chair right behind him beside the door. If he just throws it near the feet on the ground, it'll make a bang. Problem solved. The cult wouldn't even be able to stop him because they are downright unarmed. He isn't. This is so frustrating because these types of plots and concepts have so much potential if you actually put the effort in to work out the kinks and how this world actually works, and to tell the story accordingly. In the face of human conflict, they don't use the situation to their advantage, when they clearly can. The cult does this later with the phone alarm bombs, so why don't they? I'm almost done, don't worry. So after the cult bombards them with the phone alarms, a fight ensues. The grandmother sacrifices herself by grabbing the cult members, taking Ali away, and screams to kill them and her. Although this renders her sacrifice useless because Ali just fucking stands there, effectively making her grandmother's death in vain. Anyway, the family overcomes the cult, Beats by Dre stabs him, and that conflict is over pretty quickly. It seems lazy and too easy for the humans to overcome. It's just a simple ending monologue where she's like, "Oh, we'll learn, we'll be fine. We're not going to get a sequel, so let's just assume we'll be fine." The end. So listen, I don't really take pleasure in this. I mean, it is somewhat relieving to vent about a film's shortcomings after having to sit through it. It gives me a chance to articulate what I would have done with this plot, especially one this expansive. I don't like having to shit on films, to ridicule the work of a full cast and crew, but I also believe that bad writing, whether it's caused by laziness or incompetence, should be criticised in some capacity to pave the way for quality storytelling going forward. In calling out bad films, you are effectively appreciating the people who do put the effort in to perfect all aspects of storytelling, whether it's world building, dialogue, acting, and the like. I can understand that people will have worked hard on the set of this film, and even if a film is mediocre, it still creates jobs in the industry, which is a good thing. But a film should always be the best it can be. The silence, unfortunately, is not. Honestly, I do not recommend you spend your time watching this film. You'll forget about it immediately, and there are better ways to spend an hour and a half of your life on the back of this turtle we call Earth.